Welcome, everyone. This is our study group, Spiritist Psychologists, and I would like to hand it over to Anahy. Over to you, Anahy.
Hello, everyone. So today we have Professor Lionel Corbett with us, and I will start showing a PowerPoint, okay, and then I'll hand it over to Lionel to go on. So let's just share my screen. Oh, Fabrizio, you have to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, allow me. Let's see.
It's over now.
All right. Okay. Let me just see if it's everything okay here. Are you guys able to see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so today we are talking about myths and archetypes. It's a wonderful subject. So I'll bring to you some people that made the hero's journey. And because they make the hero's journey, that we are going to talk about a little bit about that, they made a difference in the world. So we have Mahatma Gandhi, and some quotes, okay, that I brought to you to inspire our meeting today. So Mahatma Gandhi said things like that. In prayer, it is better to have a heart without words than words without a heart. And non-violence does not mean the renunciation of all forms of struggle against evil. It is a much more active and real fight. Violence is created in inequality, non-violence by equality. Don't we still have to learn some of these sayings by Gandhi? And another one, happiness is achieved when what you think, what you say, and what you are, what you do are in harmony. So think, say, and do. When we do all of this, when we achieve this balance, then we are in harmony. And actually, Joanna de Angelis says something's really similar to that. So Mother Teresa of Calcutta, she would say things like, to be able to communicate peace, joy, and love, we must have them within us, because no one gives what they don't have. And sometimes we think that poverty is just hunger, nakedness, and homelessness. The poverty of not being wanted, not being loved, and not being cared for is the greatest poverty. We need to start remedying this type of poverty in our homes. It's easy to love those who are far away, but it's not always easy to love those who live next to us. Sometimes we feel that what we do is nothing more than a drop in the sea, but the sea would be smaller if it lacked a drop. All our words will be useless if they do not come from the bottom of the heart. Words that don't give light increase the darkness. Don't we all need to learn some stuff with these people? And Martin Luther King, what worries me, it's not the scream of the violent, not even the corrupt ones, not even the dishonest, not even those without character, not even those without ethics. What worries me most, it's the silence of the good. I think everybody knows these quotes, but It's very nice for our inspiration today. Each day is the day of judgment, and we, with our actions and our words, with our silence and our voice, continually write the book of life. Light has come into the world, and each of us must decide whether we want to walk in the light of constructive altruism or the darkness of selfishness. Therefore, the most urgent question to be asked in this life is, what have I done for others today? So I brought to you two great people from Brazil, Ayrton Senna, the great pilot, I think everybody knows. He would say things like that. One way to preserve your own image is to not let the world invade your home. It was a way I found to preserve my values as much as possible. This was pre-internet and the social media, but he was very wise. There is a great desire in me to always improve, to improve. It's what makes me happy. And whenever I feel like I'm learning less, that the learning curve is leveling off, then I'm not very happy. And this applies not only professionally as a pilot, but as a person. He's very loved in Brazil, and it's like a national hero that we have. Whoever you are, whatever social position you have in life, the highest or the lowest, always aim for a lot of strength, a lot of determination, and always do everything with a lot of love and a lot of faith in God. One day you get there. And maybe you know why Hamilton now is much loved in Brazil, because he did the same. He said he considered Ayrton Senna, one of the people that he would look to, and as a role model. And when he won Hamilton, when he won a race here, I think it was 1 year or 2 years ago, he grabbed the last round. He grabbed the Brazilian flag and did the same in the same way that Ayrton Senna is doing here in this picture. So now he is a Brazilian citizen, besides being a British citizen. So, and now our dear Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier would say, has wonderful quotes too, and he would say things like that. We don't learn about the spiritual world just by listening to superior spirits. Each spirit has its own vision, its experience, which continues beyond death. Here, I don't know if you can see, is Dr. Marlene Nobre. She to the right. She's the founder of the Spiritist Brazilian Medical Association, and also the Spiritist International Medical Association. Charity, Chico Xavier would say, is a spiritual exercise. Whoever does good sets the forces of the soul in motion. When spirits insistently recommend the practice of charity, they are guiding us towards our own evolution. This is not just an ethical indication, but one of profound philosophical significance. I thought this was a wonderful sentence, a very wise sentence by Chico Xavier, that the spirit insistently recommend the practice of charity. We say in the Spiritist knowledge that without charity there is no salvation, because in the sense of the soul, of setting these forces of the soul in motion, and that they are trying to help us, to guide us towards our own evolution, but it's much more than that. And it's not, as Chico Xavier is helping us understand, it's not an ethical indication, but one of profound philosophical significance. Okay, we can think about that while we go on. So Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, in The Hero with a Thousand Faces in 1948 says, the images of myth are reflections of the spiritual potential of each of us. By beholding them, we invoke their powers into our lives to work through ourselves. We're going to see what Joanna says about that. But just keep in mind what Joseph Campbell is saying. The images of myth are reflections of the spiritual potential of each of us. And also what we are going to see what Lionel Corbett said in his wonderful book, Psyche and the Sacred. By beholding them, we invoke their powers into our lives to work through ourselves. Myths tell us how to face, endure, and interpret suffering, but they do not say that there cannot or should not be suffering in life. One thing that appears in myths is that at the bottom of the abyss comes the voice of salvation. The dark moment is the moment when the real message of transformation will arrive. In the darkest moment comes the light. Let's remember this in these difficult times that we are living. The function of mythology is to connect you to your bliss and discover where it really is. So the function of mythology is to connect you to your bliss and discover where it really is. Lionel will help us to understand better what Joseph Campbell is saying here. So the transcendent is unknowable and unknown. The mystery of life is beyond any human conception. We always think in terms of opposites. Mythology suggests that behind this duality, there is a singularity over which it plays like a shadow game. So the hero myth that Joseph Campbell talks about, and we know that he helped, for instance, George Lucas to write Star Wars, right? That it's almost a religion to a lot of people. So he was talking about the hero myth, and even in movies like Star Wars. So every hero has heroic actions he must undertake, like dangerous tasks, battles against evil, etc. The presence of companions or assistants, the recurring idea of defeat, death, and rebirth. So the hero is our consciousness, which slowly emerges in humanity. And it requires cleverness, help, and perseverance. Because of our human limitations, this battle for consciousness of ourselves and others follows the cycle of defeat and recovery of heroic legends. The hero's journey is the search for ourselves. It is transforming our lives as a result of reaffirming our unique condition. It is to find the great story that accounts for our lives. This is a sacred task that makes us learn something about the essence of what it means to be human and how we are linked to the great cycles of natural and spiritual life. That's why I wanted to bring to you these great personalities to inspire our conversation. People that went through the hero's journey, not celebrity people, but the hero's journey, the myth of the hero, that found themselves and found the sacred tasks, as Campbell's talking about, that makes us learn something about the essence of what it means to be human and how we are linked to the great cycles of natural and spiritual life. And I think that's why these great personalities were able to, to let these beautiful quotes and sentences to inspire us. So Joanna de Angelis, she talks about myths in the beginning of the book, The Psychology of Gratitude from 2014. And she says, myths have always been part of society's collective unconscious along the difficult paths of history. Through them, as well as fairy tales and folklore, it was possible to present logical explanations for the complexities of life's phenomena, making them acceptable, as their scope encompasses all issues that concern the human being. So all teachings of the great masters of the past were carried out in a symbolic way, including those of Jesus, who used parables to perpetuate his lessons in the psyche of his listeners, instilling them with vigor in the 20 centuries that have passed since his stay with us. Mythology, Joanna says, became the essential psychology that contributes to the awakening of individuals so that they may decide to mobilize the available resources in their unconscious to their own advantage. It is always worth resorting to its mysteries with relevant objectives, working on them in favor of people's inner renewal, or to revalidate concepts and proposals that have not yet been established in individual or collective behavior. And now some beautiful sentence of Lionel Corbett in his wonderful book, Psyche and the Sacred, that is being right now translated to Portuguese. Is the first book of Lionel Corbett that's being translated to Portuguese. So chapter 3, in personality, psychopathology, and personal spirituality, Lionel says, our spiritual constitution, which is the same as our archetypal constitution, is as unique as our biology and its genetic makeup. In fact, the archetypes and the genes fulfill analogous functions. The way we are constituted predisposes us to respond to the world in particular ways. Physically, we respond according to our genetic makeup. Psychologically, we organize and respond to what happens to us through archetypal processes. It is as if the body and the psyche act as a refracting lenses for the light that comes from our spiritual source, which enters the world of time and space by means of archetypal patterns and bodily behavior, some of which we regard as pathological. As a result, even though ultimate reality is a unit, each human being expresses that reality in a unique way. I think this is so wonderful, Lionel. You were so inspired. And then Lionel goes on, the archetype level of our being is a dimension of our spiritual source, and so is outside of time and space in the ordinary sense of these words. It is therefore not a part of the developmental model of human growth, yet paradoxically participates within it. Throughout the life cycle, our unique combinations of archetypal potentials increasingly express themselves in our behavior. As they become part of our activity in the world, they move from being purely spiritual potentials to being concretely realized in time and space. This means that throughout our life cycle, we continuously incarnate spirit. I love that. And therefore, it is true to say that our personalities are organized spiritually. And everybody that knows Spiritism can, and that has been participating in this group can make his/her own connections. Since the archetypes are so important to the way we are organized, as our archetypal potentials incarnate, we become more and more conscious of the deeper levels of our identity. Ego, self, access, people. So the gods and goddesses of mythology, Professor Corbett says, depict archetypal processes within the psyche. Since the archetypal level of the psyche is common to all human beings, stories with the same themes appear in the myths and fairy tales of very different cultures. Archetypal patterns within the psyche form part of the human condition. In typical situations, people react in typical ways because psychologically we are all built in the same way. Remember that. Just as all bodies have common anatomical and physiological structures, so the psyche has recurrent themes and images that are common to everyone. The archetypal level of the psyche reveals its inner workings by representing these recurrent motives in the form of stories that are similar across cultures. The details of what appears to be my story can also be found in stories that reflect the larger experience of humanity, our heritage of mythology and folklore, because my personal psyche cannot be divorced from the psyche of the human race as a whole. See how important it is for us to understand all of this, because wars and conflicts, are meaningless at this point, and are really pathological, are very distant from this reality of our own psyche. That's why we get sick and we get stuck in evolution if we do things like war and, we do repeatedly doing things, very, very crazy like that. Because, as Professor Corbett says, my personal psyche cannot be divorced from the psyche of the human race as a whole. So to finish and to give it over to Lionel, myths are metaphors for the activities of the archetype. They are like archetypal enactments. Myths are stories of archetypal encounters. And according to Jung, we do not invent myths. We experience them. So I'll just stop sharing and ask Professor Lano to comment. I asked him in his wonderful book that I hope that you all have by now, Psyche and the Sacred. He talks about, he gives the example in chapter 3, when he talks about spirituality and personality, he talks about St. Francis of Assisi. And we know that St. Francis and Joanna are very, very close. So I asked him to talk a little bit about that. Lionel, it's with you now.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, it's kind of a big subject. I wasn't sure which aspect of it you wanted me to talk about. If you look at, if you look at world religions and mythologies, you'll find all over the world the same themes, the same patterns, notions like a divine being, or the virgin birth, or the great mother, or the hero, or paradise, or a dying and resurrected God, which we tend to associate with Christianity. These are actually found in a whole range of mythologies and religion. So what the ancients used to talk about as gods and goddesses, today we now talk about as archetypal processes in the psyche, very deep spiritual processes in the psyche. And when people talk about gods and goddesses, they're personifying these names, these gods and goddesses, as a way of talking about them, and they tell stories about them. And when you have a story about a mythic god or goddess, that becomes a myth. So all the world's religions, from the psychological point of view, can be seen to be mythic. For example, many or most religions and mythologies have some kind of divine mother, or queen of heaven, or feminine aspect of the divine, who's responsible for nourishing and replenishing the earth, and for personal comfort and soothing and intercession. And we call that the mother archetype in psychology. In Christianity, she'd be called the Blessed Virgin Mary. Other religions have the same name for the same archetype, have different names for the same archetype. So in the Hebrew Bible, she might be called Sophia. In India, she might be called Durga or Kali. In China and Japan, she might be called Guanyin or Isis. Or in Greek, she might be called Demeter. But these are different names for the same feminine aspects of the divine. It's just that local people, local folklore give these archetypes a different dress and different names. So similarly, if you look at gods like Zeus or Jupiter or Odin in Norse mythology, or the Yahweh of the Hebrew Bible, these would all be the mythic images of the Sky Father archetype, just given different names in different cultures. I'm not sure if I should stop there, or if you'd like me to say more about it. Are there maybe any questions about that, or is this very clear? The most important thing to remember is that from an archetypal point of view, the gods and goddesses can have positive or negative attributes. So the Great Mother, for example, she can appear as the Blessed Virgin Mary, or as Kuan Yin, a very compassionate goddess in China or Japan, or in Greek, she'd be called Demeter. So in the positive aspect, the Great Mother, the Mother archetype is nurturing and life-giving and so on, or Durga, who combats evil. But the gods and the goddesses can also have a negative side to them. So the father gods, like Yahweh in the Bible, can be rather unpredictable and rather violent. And in Greek mythology, Saturn and Kronos can prevent their children being born. It's important from a psychological point of view to understand that the archetypes have a positive aspect and a negative aspect, which is death-dealing, smothering, and suffocating. Are there any comments or question about that? This is an important difference between depth psychology and Christianity, for example, because Christianity wants to see a God image that's only positive, only light, only good. Like the first letter of John says, he is only light and in him there is no darkness. But Jung thought that this was a mistake, because what it means is that you have to split off the dark side of the divine onto the devil or the Antichrist. And he wanted to include the dark side of God into the Christian archetype. Excuse me, and that got him into a great deal of controversy with theologians. So basically,
Lana,
yes, sorry. Yes.
What would you say, for instance, when Joseph Campbell says that a myth is that at the bottom of the abyss comes the voice of salvation, and the dark moment is the moment when the real message of transformation will arrive, that in the darkest moment comes the light, in this duality?
He's a bit over-optimistic.
You think?
Well, because many people go through very dark periods and there is no redemption, there is no light. You know, you can have Good Friday without Easter Sunday. There's not always a resurrection after a crucifixion. But that was the motif that was on his mind when he said that when you get to sort of the most intense darkness, that's when the light begins. And that is sometimes true. For example, in the Christian myth, that would be true. After the crucifixion, when everything seemed to be lost, then you had the resurrection. But in fact, for many people, that doesn't always happen.
But if we think about reincarnation, since
Yeah.
we are trying to connect, that's what Joanna's purpose, to connect all that we understand about psychology, especially depth psychology, with the concepts of spiritism, the spiritist knowledge. So, because you also talk about the incarnation, let's say, of the archetype that manifests in this personality.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, we could think that when we achieve the end of this life, and we are looking to a certain story of a personality, okay? And then we can say, well, he suffered to the end. From our point of view in space and time, because a certain person had suffer a lot in life, okay? Many people stories are like that, and then the person dies. So okay, it would be like you said, okay, so it's the end and it's just suffering, and there was no salvation afterwards. But if we think of the as a continuous, that all the spirit is knowledge. So this spirit just fulfilled the task, and that the knowledge that the spirit achieved is going with this consciousness to the spiritual dimension. So the rebirth would not be in this life or in this time and space, but would be in the spiritual dimension. Then we would expand the concept, and maybe what Joseph Campbell was saying, and he was saying, of course, not considering reincarnation, but then, and that's why you said he was very optimistic. But if we consider reincarnation, then I think what he says has, he has a point. Denise wants to talk, but I want to listen to you first.
One of the functions of mythology is to explain reality. How did we get here? Where are we going? What does it all mean? Those are the kinds of questions that mythologies answer. So if you believe in reincarnation and the continuation of some kind of consciousness after death, that is your mythology. That is your way of explaining reality. So then you have a myth which is very comforting and tells you, gives you an answer to the, at least an approach to the problem of suffering. But that's only if that's a living myth. If it's just a theoretical idea, it wouldn't be a living myth. So you have to really believe that.
Yes, so I think it's very important what you said, Lionel, because for everyone that has had contact with the reality of what happens, in the anomalous experiences, in the spiritual experiences of people, and it happens all over the world, but here in Brazil, since we are talking about spiritist knowledge with people like Chico Xavier and Divaldo, the great mediums, and all what's going on, the books and the writings and their own life examples, then probably because you have to be able to look at that and leave it, right? And have a, because I have heard all around the world people saying that we don't know what happens after death, because nobody has come from death to I don't know if you people have heard that, to give a report of what happened. Well, they haven't been to Brazil. We have lots and lots of proofs that there's a lot of people, many decades, or since Allan Kardec in France, coming from and a lot of other mediums coming from the spiritual realm to tell what's going on. So it's just, I just wanted to bring this forward, because then we can understand why Joanna is saying that we can go through mythology, as Professor Lana was saying, and try to to have the resources to our spirit to find our own truth. But I'll just give to Denise first, and then we have Anne Sinclair. Denise, you want to make comments or ask?
Good afternoon, everyone. I excuse myself because I'm in Brazil and it's very noisy around. I try to close the doors, but anyway, and my English also gets very rusty. Anyway, I'd like to mention something through your explanation, Anahy. That's you said that it's an insight that I got. Is in the darkest moment that we probably have the opportunity to go through an important path for our individuality, or individuação in Portuguese, that I don't know how is it in English.
Individuation, Denise. Individuation.
Thank you very much. As say Joanna de Angelis. But we live, you said about conflicts, wars. This is something recurrent, something that happens, it happens from time to time. Now we have different types of conflicts. And if we have all, you said, I think I understood, maybe I hope I didn't took it wrong. Sometimes we stuck when the humanity gets more conflict, because we are connected to each other. So if our archetypes, our myths, we depend, or we are related to each other. So in those moments, I ask you, Lionel, and you, Doctor, do you think maybe we could see as opportunities, as being in a dark point, to rethink, to rebirth for a better path, a better way for our individuation?
Go ahead, Lionel, please.
The problem is that different mythological systems are in conflict with each other. So if you look at the mythology of Judaism and Islam and Christianity, in terms of mythology meaning, excuse me, an explanation for how the sacred works, that would be a very broad definition. Each of these traditions has a different idea about which is the correct sacred text, how the divine manifests itself. And people are very identified narcissistically with their own mythological story. This is what my sacred text says is the truth. So mine has to be better than yours, and yours must be wrong. And that invariably leads to conflict. So since the beginning of the Abrahamic traditions, for 2,000 or 3,000 years, we've had conflict between these mythologies. And it gets wrapped up in human narcissism, you know. mine is more important than yours, I'm more special than yours, my God is bigger than yours, you know, those kind of silly things. And that's why these conflicts go on forever. So I'm afraid I'm not very hopeful about any kind of resolution, because the mythologies are just incompatible with each other. I know that, I'm sorry if I didn't mean to depress you, but that seems to be the
We, Denise, Lionel, and
Thank
I
you
are
for your
like
explanation, Lionel.
I'm just not very optimistic. These religious conflicts have been going on for a very long time. As long as you have more than one religion, you're going to have conflict, basically.
yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. And that's why it's so rich, right, Lana? We have been working together for many, many years now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we kind of complement each other. But I'm kind of the opposite. I'm very optimistic because, it's a paradox, because I'm optimistic. One of the reasons is it's because I met Lionel so many years ago, Lionel. So what you are not optimistic, you made me optimistic. That's a paradox.
Because you can't tolerate my pessimism. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I'm optimist because one of the reasons we have this in record, and I told you to look for in YouTube. I know that it's complete Pinga Fogo. That's the name of the TV program with Chico Xavier. And has you have to put someone that doesn't know a Portuguese has to put legends, subtitles. And but I'm very optimistic because when Allan Kardec he wrote the Spirit, he made the questions to all the mediums that like we have already talked using the scientific method. And so he writes the Spirit book with the answers of the spirits to his question in 1957. And we know it's in his biography and all of, in the Spiritist magazine that he founded, that he asked. There was a really big thing. We know about people in Spain can help me, that they burn the Spiritist book in Spain. I think it was in Barcelona, right? Yeah, so like the Nazis burned a lot of books and all this stuff. This is also an archetypal situation. I don't like what I see, or I'm afraid of something that it's unknown. So I'm going to burn the books and pretend that this doesn't exist. But when the spirits, when he asked the spirits if Spiritist was a religion, the answer of the spirits is that Spiritism was coming to help people prepare to get to the point where we don't need more religion, Lionel. Okay, and
That would be wonderful. I wish we could just get rid of it.
Yeah, I think we are going. I don't know if you and I will be alive, but maybe, our grandchildren will be. So the thing is that we have to prepare. That's why Joanna is so, her objective, it's so working so much, so many decades in spirituality. I don't want to give you spoilers. We're going to talk about this in our last meeting. But she has been working for decades to join all the psychological knowledge that we have with, everything that's coming from spirits. From now, it's like more around, more than 150 years. To understand that what Lana was talking about, there's really truth in our days. Different mythologies and narcissistic thinking that mine is the truth, But I always, I learned that to think about non-duality with Lionel and with Spiritist knowledge. So I'm quite sure that when we don't need this type of mythology anymore, in a sense of giving images and to the transcendent, okay? And when we reach to a point of the numinous experiences, the direct experience of the sacred, as Professor Corbett speaks so wonderfully about that, then we won't need anymore, you know, and we have the spirits. We have a lot of experience all around the world that people that work in spiritist centers, that we hear spirits and we feel the spirits, and we feel, as Joanna is saying here and tell us, and Chico Xavier is telling us, that a consciousness goes on. So it's not because, you know, the spirit in this is in the spiritual realm. It depends on the level of vibration that he is. It's going to be closer to us or higher up. But the thing is that this, if the spirit is very identified with his last personality, and maybe he was a religious fanatical or just a religious person that, as Lionel was saying, narcissistically thinks that he has or she has, you know, the reason. And we know through Chico Xavier's writings that in the spiritual dimensions very close to Earth, they by charity, I think, and so that consciousness will have time to adapt and adjust, that they have, for instance, temples, as maybe Sylvia can help me, I don't remember which of Chico Xavier's book by André Luiz says that the person can, for instance, is a Catholic, a very, you know, believes in that kind of mythology, then many times the person will be in the spiritual realms very close to Earth, and she and he or he will find a priest, for instance, and will go to a spiritual church, or to a church, a Catholic church or whatever temple or something in spiritual realms close to Earth, or connect in some way. Why? Oh, do we still need religion in spiritual realms? No, we don't. Only if our consciousness needs. And because, you know, the transcendent one is so merciful, and we have all the mentors, the spirit guides helping us, we will, let's say, be close to what we feel that it's more comforting. But to, okay, just to finishing, Denise, I'm very optimistic because I think we are heading to this point of non-duality. I'm not saying it's even if I'm going to be alive to see it, but I'm pretty sure, because I believe in this evolution of consciousness, because of all the testimonies, you know, that not only in Brazil, I told you to read the wonderful book Testimony of Light by Alan Greaves in England. It's like a bestseller, and they all tell the same thing, that if we do this, you know, this inner connection, then we don't need religions anymore, and we are not going to feel separate, and we are not even going to go to wars and saying, this is my land, get out of here because this is my religion and this is totally, you know, crazy from the point of view of non-duality. That's why I brought to you some of the sentence of Psyche and the Sacred, the wonderful book of Lionel. So that's it. That's my point of view. We are reaching a point of non-duality. Not all of us. And Lionel, what Spiritist knowledge say is that to get to the other level of evolution here on Earth, that it's, according to Chico Xavier, it's not that far away. It's some decades away. I don't know how it's going to happen. I just believe it's going to happen. There are spirits already being relocated, I think you say in English, to other worlds where they can continue their evolution, because if they get stuck, as Denise said, in this kind of thinking that I'm the only right person in my religion and the others mythologies or religions are not worthwhile and I have to fight them, they are not going to be able pretty soon in spiritual like spiritual time, that it's not our time, to reincarnate in earth. This is a knowledge that we have in Spiritist, Spiritist books and spiritual information. But let me give to Anne Sinclair. Sorry about that. Took me a while to.
I think Anne will be the next. Do you forgive me my boldness to just say something now? Thank you very much, Anne. I'm positive optimist like you, because I think talking about religions, I will make it very short. For instance, I think in very difficult moments, we get someone or something that bring us, let's say, an upgrade. Maybe not the answer, but something like when we talk about Moses and the 10 Commandments, he was not him, he wrote it. He came with those. Even Chico Xavier said in this Pinga Fogo that this is a demonstration about spiritism, because he came with the commandments. It was not written by him. Like we know that Muhammad in the Islamism, he was illiterate, and it's beautiful, the Quran, many things, the way it was written. And we have, as you brought to us, Dr. Gandhi, that brought a message of peace in a conflict, and other Madre Teresa de Calcutta. So I think we are not hopeless. I think even religions being still something that put us apart and bring us different points, even against each other. But I think the spirit comes in very right moments to help us to go forward in this way to our individuation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And even to our, let's say, the process that everyone has to come to evolve. So that's it, Anne. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anne, please.
So yeah, so it was a little bit further back when I'd raised my hand. So it was about the comment that of Joseph Campbell, in the darkest hour, then you get the light. But also it's when I was thinking of it, and it was not just reincarnation, because you could be, let's say, you could leave this world in a very how can I say, dark way, and be in a very dark place on the other side, because that was your state when you transitioned, if you like. But at some point, you have a moment where there is a change of heart, and the light comes, and it's like the beginning of the dawn. And the way that I've seen this described in either like in the Shadowlands and other books like that, is when the good spirits, they're looking at, let's say, the regions of darkness, and you can't go and pluck people out of it. You have to wait for the person to have that change of heart. Then when they have that change of heart of looking for optimism, looking for a new opportunity, looking for something, it's like they send out a flare, like the ships. That's how the spirits say, from that darkness, they see a flare come up, and they say, oh, that person is ready to to receive our assistance now. So they go and then they help to bring them up to a different region for recovery and things like that. But they can't do that until that person is ready, respecting each one's journey and each one's time. And I know that time and space outside of the earth, its dimension is different, but still I have to talk in those terms because that's how I can reference it. But I think it's talking about the myths and the archetype. It's, for me, it's just like we are immersed where we see the cycles of nature, and the night comes, but dawn comes every day, and there is a renewal, and there is hope again, and you have a day, and then night comes again, and you have winter, but then spring comes again, and everything is reborn. So the myth of the rebirth, and that even if you're in the darkness, there will be light again, there will be flowers again, there will be food again. This is very imbued in our earth experience, because this is what nature shows us every day, more strongly if you live in areas where the weather is more defined in that way. And I think that that is what we are relating to. So I don't feel so if you went into a place of darkness and then that's it, and then what next? Something comes next. So something, I think that the light is the motivator, the spark that gets you moving again. And I think that that's just a natural thing, just like the light comes after the night. That's the way I see it. So it's not to do with religion in my case, because I am not really attached to religion, as are most of my friends here in the UK, not attached to religion at all. I mean, most people see religion as means of manipulation and, tribes and things like that serve their purpose in the past, but perhaps don't have much of a function nowadays because of of all the corruption and manipulation and all those kinds of things. But nevertheless, people looking for the sacred, but looking for their own personal journeys towards connection, oneness, and sublimation in some way. So that's probably a myth journey again, of some sort. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm kind of seeing it's a way we can explain it. So I just wanted to say that even if somebody went to think about reincarnation, and that you, even in the spiritual world, if you were to find yourself in that darkness, because that's where you were when you transitioned, there will come a moment where there will be a spark of light, because that is the experience that is reported. And if not, what next? You just stay there in the darkness forever? I think that we all have that divine spark that motivates us at some point when we are ready. Sorry, I spoke too much.
No, I think it's great. Elena, would you like to comment?
Well, I think we're dividing into optimists and pessimists. I agree with you that non-duality is the ultimate religious medicine that would get rid of all this conflict. It's actually the only thing that's important to me personally, because all the other types of religion just cause conflict. I think there's plenty of evidence for that. The trouble is that non-duality means you have to give up your own sense of self-importance. You have to realize that you are a part of everybody else, that we're not really separate. We're not separate from God, and we're not separate from each other at a deep level. We just seem to be. But for people will not give up their own sense of self-importance. And it's grounded in our scriptures. If somebody mentioned the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments has a commandment that says, you shall have no other God before me. That's a narcissistic God image right there. I'm the most important God. Don't believe in the other gods. Don't worship the other gods because I'm more important. It's right there at the beginning. I mean, all the traditions have that kind of thing. Even Jesus, who I have the greatest feeling of affection for and so on, even he said, if people who don't believe me, bring them here and kill them, or they'll burn in hell. I mean, even he had a little edge to him when it came to this kind of separateness. Okay, so and I spent a lot of time with people who've been in concentration camps and so on, and believe me, there was no in the darkness. They just went to gas chambers. Nothing
Mm.
saved them. And I'm afraid that you're just in denial if you think that somehow at the darkest point there's going to be light. Sometimes there is, but very often there isn't. Sorry to be pessimistic.
No, that's the idea, that everybody, we can talk to everyone, and really understand each other from different perspectives. I myself, Lionel, don't believe that Jesus said that, because I know they had the copists, I think I would say,
Yeah.
that on the
It may be
different.
It may be church propaganda that was written into the Gospels, but it's one of the sources of anti-Semitism that's going on now all over the world. Especially in the Gospel of John, there's a great deal of anti-Jewish sentiment, and we've had 2,000 years of the Holocaust and pogroms, and it's still going on. I don't know what's going on in Brazil, but in this country, it's having a resurgence. So. And that's directly due to this Christian anti-Judaism that's built into the Gospels.
Yeah, and I think all of this is man-made.
I agree.
We have a lot of history. We cannot, say, and that's why I think Spiritism knowledge is so important, and other kind of spiritual information that it's coming through different parts of the world. Without any actually, through mediums and things like that, without any actually religion, because a lot of spiritual texts and things like that have been manipulated over time. We know that.
I agree. But,
yeah.
You gave the example at the beginning of Gandhi and MLK and Mother Teresa. These are great wisdom figures from the Western tradition. The wise old man and the wise old woman and so on. And they give very good spiritual advice. Like Jesus says, turn the other cheek, don't resist evil with evil. This is very good spiritual advice. But it's a waste of time because it doesn't deal with unconscious complexes. You can't tell somebody to turn the other cheek if they're full of hatred and rage. You're going to go and tell the Hamas fighters to turn the other cheek, or the Israelis to turn the other cheek when they've just been massacred. It just doesn't deal with the reality of human nature. It's naive. The advice is good, but it just doesn't deal with the unconscious, with the rage and hatred in the unconscious. That can only be dealt with in a very different way.
Yeah, but I think it's two things in for instance, it can sound naive what Gandhi said, but he changed India. He liberated India from the the British Empire. So that's not so naive because it manifested in the world. And the other thing, in Mother Teresa, well, we have, of course, all of her work and the people that she helped, and many people are alive because of her, for instance, and stayed alive and cured themselves. Yeah, but so it depends.
My point is that spiritual advice alone is not enough.
Yeah, I know, and I agree with you. And that's why it's so important what Joanna de Angelis is trying to bring to us. I totally agree with you, and I'm certain she would agree that we have to know, like Jung said, Lionel, in Face to Face, when he was asked what's the origin of evil. Yeah. And he said the origin of all coming evil was man himself. Absolutely. And that we know too little about the psyche. So that's exactly what you are saying, right? Yeah, that we have to know.
There's a wonderful story about Gandhi when somebody said to him, what do you think of Western civilization? And he said, I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So we are in the verge of building this civilization, Eastern and West, and I think it's not built yet. Why do we know that? Because we still have wars and have thinking people thinking that we are separate from each other, as you said wonderfully in your book. So that's why, again, I urge people to read Joanna de Angelis, because she's bringing this non-duality. I love when Anne says that Joanna de Angelis is a light teacher, because she's bringing this concept so that we can transcend this state of not knowing ourselves, that it's what you are saying, right? A lot of people not knowing themselves get together and they get fanatical because they are going to project the enemy that persecute them onto other cultures, and they have been doing this for many, many ages. So we need desperately to wake up and to understand, as you yourself said in your book, that there's no point in the psychological from psychological point of view, there is totally unrealistic to think of each other as separate, because deep down in the unconscious we are one and we have the same spiritual heritage, right? But I just want to give to Sylvia that it's been, her hands has been raised for a long time. Sylvia, go ahead. And then we have also Lee and Tanya.
Okay, well, we've gone such a long way with the discussion, and it's very important. I just want to make a point about the religion, something that Leon Denis said, that Spiritism is not the religion of the future, but the future of all religion. So taking away, you know, what Lionel says, the Nazis, my God's better than yours, I know. And we know throughout the history, the worst, the most horrible wars that ever existed were religious war, and you know, we still see it, and it's the same ignorance of people and everything. But I also like the point that Anna made, because the question of darkness, and although you know, like Niall said, you can't tell someone who's full of hatred to be turn the other cheek. Some people maybe will, but it's very difficult, because especially in those days, the days we're living now, that's so much media, and you know, the conflicts are so. But on the other hand as well, I feel that even though it's absolutely horrible what's happened and everything, and everybody's so divided, on the other hand, we seem to be coming to a point where there is no half term, no middle term. There is no one sitting in the fence anymore. You have to pick a side. And I think it's part of the process that our planet is going through, and the cleansing that is happening here, because we know that many spirits that are now here on this planet have been reincarnated here as a last, to see if they could make the grade, if they could change a little bit. And those who are not, you know, as you said, are going to go to a planet where everybody's aggressive, horrible, full of hatred. And, you know, it tires people to be in amongst them, and then they will learn. Because, you know, like Anne said, there was a point that they will say, oh, I don't want this anymore. They will send a flat, and somebody say, you know, God knows that they will want to change. And I mean, that's what we read in the spirit, in the books that we study. But one point as well, from the quotes that you gave us at the beginning of Gandhi, when he said, non-violence does not mean the renunciation of all the forms of struggle against evil. It is much more active and a real fight. And the words of Martin Luther King as well, Dr. King, he said as well that what worried him most was not the cruelty, the violence, but the quiet, the silence of the good people. And I think, you know, we sit and see the violence take over, and I think that you get scared, whatever it is. And this is a very important point in this time. I personally, I am optimist because I accept the teachings that the Spirit gives us. We are in a journey, and sometimes there is darkness, because human beings are very, very dark at times, and they want to win. But what are they going to win over? You know, we're gonna die, those lands are going to be there, and somebody else will come. There is always this, it's all fight for power, religion, you know, they name it, but it's irrelevant in some way. So I think that sometimes things has to go really bad until they get better. Because when they're tired of fighting or hating, it really takes a lot out of people, and they will get tired of it, and peace will come, and God willing it will. And we're fighting, we have to do our part to be peaceful as well. But just one thing that you said, oh, help me with the thing. I couldn't think of any book of Chico at the moment that you asked, but I remember a book of Filomeno de Miranda, that Divaldo wrote, I think Torment of Obsession or something, that there is a place that people need to go to church. And he meets two women who actually he knew when he was on earth. And then they were going to church and having mass. And that he was asking the priest, you know, why? I said, well, you know, they still believe it. So they go to mass, or they go to the synagogues or whatever, and they still need that because their spirit is still very much connected to their religion on earth here. And another thing that you're saying was the Bishop of Barcelona who put this first book under the index, which was one of the things of the Inquisition. And there was an act of faith that they burned the books, and was the best thing that could ever happen to Spiritism, because then everybody was wondering, what book is that? Are they burning it? So it was the best thing that happened. So I think personally, I am very optimistic. I think I believe that sometimes, you know, we as individuals and as a society go to the dark night of the soul, but there is light. I think it's like Anna said, there is the sun will always come out, whether we like it or not. We can turn our eyes and keep our eyes closed, but the light will come. And I feel optimistic, although sometimes it requires quite a lot of strength to think the best of humanity, you know. So that's it. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Sylvia, very much. I'm going to hand it to Ezali and Tanya, but I just wanted to give you an example first. My mother has a very, and Lionel knows that, very severe Alzheimer, and she had a problem a couple of days ago and had to go to the hospital. And we were very worried because she can't, you know, she's 93 and she can't recognize anyone or anybody. And you know that I think in English you say palliative care, right? That she's in palliative care, but of course you have to let her, you know, be comfortable and all of that. So she had to go in the hospital and make a procedure. Okay. So I being in the last of the children, of course, she can't even remember the first of her children, so she can't remember the last. But like 2, 3, or 4 days before everything that went on, that she had to go to the hospital, she talked about me. She asked about me, and it was like more than 1 year, I think 1.5 years, 2 years, that she has never said my name, and she didn't know who I was or whatever. And then 4 days later, she had this problem. She had to go in the hospital. So I was seeing patients and all of that, but then I changed. Everybody said I wasn't able, and I went to the hospital. She was in the emergency care. And when I got there, she was like sleeping deeply. She was deeply. Remember, we talked about the dreams and the spirit disconnecting from the body. Okay. people, her brain is totally out. It's very, very severe Alzheimer, okay? So even, the personality, things like that, you cannot recognize. She doesn't have any function. So when I got there, I was just thinking you never know if the person will come alive and is your mother and all of that. So when I was there, then one of my sisters that was with her, she said, okay, I'm going to leave you two alone. I will have something to eat and all this stuff. So I stayed with her. And then since I am a spiritist, right? At that moment, I connected to the spirits, to the doctors, spirit realms and things like that. And it came to me that I should impose my hands. Okay, I think this is very important because, just for you to realize that when we do this connection, we have to look, like Anne said, we all have dark moments, but we have to struggle to try to make the connection. So I just imposed my hands, and it came to me, and I stayed, trying to connect to the spirits that were helping. And after that, it came to me that I should sing to her. And there is a spiritist song that it's called Quanta Luz. That it's, what would be the translation, Marcia? A lot of light? Something like that, because quanta is a lot, okay? Luz, light. So quanta luz. And it's like
so
a
much
month.
light.
What, sorry?
So much light.
So much light. Thank you, Anne. So much light. And it's like a mantra, So I started, we were in the emergency room, just the curtains, a lot of people there. So I just stayed singing to her very, very slowly and low voice. And she was deep in sleep. And she wouldn't even have any reaction. So I started singing to her like a mantra. And in a fourth time, something like that, she opened her eyes, she smiled at me, and she grabbed my hands. Okay. And it was a connection eye to eye. She recognized me in spiritually, because she doesn't have any brain anymore to remember the last daughter. And it was so powerful, Lana. I cannot even, explain to you. It was very numinous because she was there suddenly looking at me and recognizing me in a spiritual form, because, the eyes are the windows to the soul. It was a connection because I know my mother and I have been with her when she's many times before. She is totally out in the last years. And she grabbed my hands and she smiled. Okay. And she stayed like that, stayed like that for some time while I was singing. So I remember that because, as Anne said, if you call the light, if you connect to the light, it doesn't matter, like Mother Teresa said, when you look to a person that it's smelling, that it's dying on the street, and it's so awful, but you can see the flower that it's beside this person, and you grab this person and you take and you clean the person and you put white dresses and you feed the person. Maybe the person will die, but will die with dignity and with love and light. So I strongly believe, because I live this reality, and I know most of you, when you connect to this reality, also live this reality. We practice very much when we are in the Spiritist centers, or when we are together with friends, or in day by day when we ask for the light. And Lionel, this song, I will translate to you all, or if any of you have the translation, if you can send to Fabrizio that he can put in the WhatsApp. This song is like a mantra and talks about Jesus and talks about light and talks about consciousness and talks about also what Gandhi said, praying not with words, but with the heart. And I can tell you that it happened, a spiritual connection happened. So I just wanted to give you this, and everything went all right. She could have died, but it was not her time. I'm not saying that's because I was there or when anything, but she didn't die. She's back at home. But the important thing is that eye to eye, I saw the connection, and I'm quite sure, and I know, not quite sure, I know in my heart that it's because I asked for the light, whatever the light means to us. It doesn't matter the religion. Sorry, people, I just wanted very much to give you this. It's saying that's why I'm always optimistic. And I know that if, like Gandhi said, if we struggle, in a sense that it's difficult to be optimistic, but if we struggle and if we, like Anne said, if we ask for the light is here. It's not coming, it's here, but we have to open up to the light to make the connection. Sorry about that. I don't know, Elsely maybe had to leave, or it's not with the hand anymore. Then Tanya, I think Elsely is not with the hand anymore, I can see.
Actually, you're on.
Because I think because what I would like to see first is thank you very much, Doctor. It's so wonderful this experience, and I feel so too much hope to the human being. Yeah, I mean that. It's very, I think we are wonderful human beings. We are. I think what I would like to say, Dr. Lionel said almost about Jesus. I think, I don't know, it is only complete because I took his think about what would you say? I think already at Jesus show us 2,000 years ago a glimpse of the future of a human being, of us. Because he talks about religion, yes, this is true, but he talked much more about our inside us. Inside us. This was the difference. And future of the religion, it was like it's, you have to say, and Anahy, Doctor, it was vanished as soon because though didn't manage to know, and people don't need this. This is like an umbrella, but we don't need that. So, because when you understood why people study Joanna de Angelis, as soon understand that it's much deeper, and really religion word is that to know us self, by self. And about then, when he said on the Zacchaeus, I will dine with you, will be my hostess. Yes, right. In the night, I will dinner with you. I will dine with you. So he showed us too about that, because everybody knows who was Zacchaeus. And about the Samaritan woman that he was thirst, and she gave us. You asked about water, and give a wonderful example at that time about that he was the water, the right water. And about then is Jacob, I think, in the road. The man, he was sick and very, very. I think it was banditos and take his things, and he was almost to die. And then came and Samaritan and helped because priest didn't anything. Then Christian anything, but then Samaritan then did something, helped him, and take care of him in the house. So like a hotel at that time. This is the reality, and this is you say. I know this is very, very complex to all of us, the situation and this question. At you and we must understand that the very, very important is our inside, and take care our inside. Though that time, though, and talk about individuation, yes, then we understood what is individuation. Of course, it's a long time too in the future. Though, yes, it is. I bear pardon of my English because I can English, but I can't talk when I am. I know I'm so weak.
Okay, thank you, Elsalie. Thank you so much.
I hope you understood a little.
A little, yeah. I'll give to Tanya because we have some more 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, thank you so much. Tanya, please.
Hi. First of all, just to say how touched I was by your experience with your mother, and it was wonderful for you to share that. Those moments are precious and will be in the years ahead. And thank God to know that in time when her transition comes, that free of that brain, that her full faculties can and will return, and her full expression of her soul will be restored to her. It's a huge comfort to have that. So God bless her in this part of her journey. So my question really was around the words that you shared from Lionel's book, where he was talking. It was like I can't remember the exact words, but the like the body with the DNA and the psyche with the mind, that the light coming from source refracts through in unique ways through each individual being. That's how I heard it. And that, we are a unique mix, given that we've had very particular experiences down through several incarnations, and how we may consciously or unconsciously identify with certain archetypes that resonate and that can have higher or lower expressions. Like I was just looking up the hero archetype during the meeting, and seeing, from the warrior through to, let's say Gandhi, a non-violent warrior now, and channeling that in a very different way compared to what he would have been. But then thinking about the necessity for us to balance and develop perhaps all the archetypes and identify, and not just align ourselves with the ones that are comfortable, or the ones that are that we're most that are easier as default for us to head, which is why I guess we get moved across different cultures and genders and whatever to help us to develop those. But I just wanted to, because I can't remember if I had the wording in front of me, I could point to it, but it was just that question or that observation slash question about, you know, taking almost like a positive psychology, strengths-based approach to things, recognizing those archetypes that could be helpful, but then maybe identifying the ones where we have a lot to learn, and engaging consciously with that.
Yeah, I think you have a wonderful point. Let's see if Lionel want to comment.
No, I don't think so. I just had one question for you. In the spiritual dimension, are there some negative spirits, or are they all positive and helpful?
There are terrible ones.
Terrible. It depends.
And they are the ones who are giving a lot of incentive to what is happening now.
Yeah, I was wondering whether we were getting some of that.
Sorry, I beg your pardon for jumping. They're all around us, and they are very...
It's the law of vibration, Lionel. That's why it's so important. But I think, we are in the times of multiverse and quantum physics, and understanding that there are many universes, or, you know, interconnected, many dimensions. So what they have already been telling from the Spiritist knowledge is that it's all about vibration. It depends on how we vibrate, that we are going to be in a certain dimension, let's say. So yeah, there are terrible ones, right, Sylvia, and everybody. And if we connect to them, they can, according to Spiritist knowledge, they can, okay.
We stay in we stay in the level of our thoughts. Those areas is not like a punishment that God sends you here or there. It's our own thoughts, our own level of connection that takes us wherever. But they are extremely negative and cruel and horrible. Those who are in deepest darkness, and their happiness is to make other people unhappy. So that is not, I mean, I think Anne mentioned that as well, but I think it's good to be aware of it and to keep our thoughts positive, not to fall into that trap.
I just wanted to say that I think Tanya's comment, I think you wrote, Tanya, in the chat about Gandhi and Hitler. And there's some information about that in Spiritist knowledge, but I'm not going to give you spoilers. Maybe next time we can talk about that. That it's spiritual information that came. I'm not quite sure if it was Chico Xavier or Divaldo. But Tanya, what I think it's very important that you said, that talking about this Lionel's book, Psyche and the Sacred. I just wanted to end with, I thought also like you that this sentence is wonderful. He was very inspired. You were very inspired, Lionel, when you wrote that. It's like this, people. It is as if the body and the psyche act as refracting lenses for the light that comes from our spiritual source, which enters the world of time and space by means of archetypal patterns and bodily behavior, some of which we regard as pathological. As a result, even though ultimate reality is a unit, each human being expresses that reality in a unique way. You were very, very inspired. I love that. And I think what Tanya was saying, it depends on our lenses, right, Lionel? And putting everything together, if we reflect the darkness, as you said, of our God image, right? And we connect it to the darkness of others. Of course, we are going to be in the shadowlands when we pass away, to the other side, or even here, we are going to be in darkness with fanatical people, with people that, as Sylvia said, are very bad and very connected to to darkness themselves. But if these lenses, I think that's the point that Tanya was wondering about, right, Tanya? If our lenses, we clean our lenses. And I wanted also just to end that when I was singing So Much Light, that it's great that it has been translated to English. Thank you so much. If anyone please can send Fabrizio the music, because it's a mantra. So when I was singing, I think what I'm doing, I was in an altered state of consciousness, Lionel, because my ego was not there. I was not worried. I was totally focused on her and on the spiritual realms, asking for, you know, for whatever happened to her would be peaceful. And so I think my lenses there were like cleaner than usual. So I hope all of us this next 2 weeks be inspired by Lionel's, you know, sentences about the lenses and reflect, you know, the positive side of our God image, not the dark and whatever. And we can stay, like Tanya said, you know, we can manifest in this world more light. I do believe that if each one of us manifests more light, then we will at least diminish a little bit of the darkness that is trying to surround us. Thank you so much, all of you, and have a great week ahead.